After years of being ampless, I finally broke down and bought a Fender ToneMaster Deluxe Reverb. Since there's already tons of videos about this amp, I'm going to focus on some aspects that other people don't seem to talk about much. Namely, how to decide which ToneMaster model is best for you, and how the ToneMaster Deluxe Reverb handles in a residential setting, both for practice and for recording. I've been thinking about buying one of these amps since they were first announced in 2019. As an apartment dweller at the time, I was using Amplitude 5 as a substitute for a real amp. It sounded pretty good, I could practice and record without disturbing my neighbors. Plus, I wasn't gigging or anything, so I didn't need a physical amp. When my girlfriend and I moved into this house about 2 years ago, I started to think, maybe I can get an amp again. Nothing big or loud, just something so I wouldn't need headphones to practice, and that could maybe go to a gig someday. First off, I'd like to offer some advice if you're not sure which model to buy. If you're thinking seriously about the Deluxe, we can probably rule out the Twin Reverb and the Super Reverb. Those are big amps, they're made for being loud. If you don't have a good reason, don't get one. So what does that leave? The Princeton Reverb, the Deluxe Reverb, and the Blonde edition of the Deluxe Reverb. For practicing and recording at home, I think the Princeton would be the ideal choice. Except I don't know about you, but I don't like the sound of a reissue Princeton or Deluxe with a Jensen speaker. There's something about the high mids that ends up sounding sort of like clangy, metallic, I don't know how to describe it. Kind of a honking? Well, why not change the speaker? That would solve the problem. One of the biggest downsides of the ToneMaster series is the fact that you can change the internal speaker, but you cannot customize the built-in impulse responses from the direct output. That means even if I change the speaker, the direct out is still modeling the stock speaker. The only alternatives would be to either mic the cabinet or to use a third-party cab simulator. Either way, it nullifies the convenience of the direct output. Even though I think the Princeton would be better for home use, I went with the Blonde Deluxe because of that Celestion Neo Creamback speaker. To me, that gets the amp close enough to what I want that I don't feel the need to change anything. Because for this kind of money, above all, I want something that sounds good. If you're mostly playing at home and you like the sound of a Princeton with a 10-inch Jensen speaker, or a Deluxe with a 12-inch Jensen speaker, either of those options will probably serve your purposes. This thing sounds incredible in person. The virtual bright cap mod and the Celestion speaker really makes this thing sound full and big while retaining that classic Fender sparkle. The first thing I did when I got this amp all set up was to figure out which of the attenuator settings would work best for my situation. For a 12.5 by 10 foot room with some acoustic treatment, I'm mostly using the 0.2 watt setting with the volume around 4 or 5. I can also turn it up to the half watt setting if I want a cleaner sound at the same volume level. While this works fine in a house, I don't know if I could recommend this amp for someone living in an apartment. Yes, you absolutely could run the direct output into an audio interface and play with headphones, but if you want to play with headphones, there's a lot more affordable options. Now, assuming you live somewhere where you can get away with some low volume levels, here's what I can tell you. First off, do not expect it to sound exactly like a cranked tube amp at the attenuated settings. Part of what makes a cranked amp sound so good is the fact that it's moving air around. It's shaking the room. You're feeling the vibrations in your body. There's no way to replicate that at low volumes. There's just not. Now, you can still get a really good tone with this thing at low volumes. And even if you have this thing turned way low, I still can't promise that no one's going to come barging in and say, hey, turn that thing down. But as someone who used to practice with a Fender Pro Reverb, it's kind of amazing to have this much control over the volume. Just about every review you can find about the ToneMaster Deluxe Reverb goes gaga over the weight, which, I mean, it's a big deal. It looks like a Deluxe, it sounds like a Deluxe, but it only weighs 23 pounds. That's amazing. But a different aspect that no one seems to be talking about is the heat. A real tube amp can heat up a small room in an hour or two. Yeah, the ToneMaster gets a little warm after a while, but I'm not breaking a sweat just sitting near it. And if you live somewhere like I do where triple-digit heat is like a normal thing all summer long, it's kind of a welcome relief not having a small furnace in my home studio. I think one of the most important things to consider if you're looking at the Fender ToneMaster series, or really any other amp, is just how bad YouTube is for judging how something sounds. There's really no substitute for sitting in the room with the amp and experiencing it in person. Now, if you're like me and you have a lot of experience with Fender tube amps, the various demos that you can find on YouTube are actually pretty good. But here's my 2 cents. Does it sound exactly like the tube version? Maybe, maybe not. But I don't think that matters. It handles the way I expect a tube amp to handle. I can plug in my guitars and my pedals and get sounds that I expect to be able to get. Plus, the Tone Master has a few other modern conveniences. And if that's not enough for you, well, go find something else. Once again, thanks for watching. I hope this video has been helpful. Be sure to give it a like, subscribe to my channel, and check back for future videos. Now get off YouTube and go practice.